Bonjour tout le monde, good morning. I'm pleased to be here with my colleague, the Honourable Bardish Chagger, Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth, as we stand here on the traditional territory of the Algonquin peoples. Today, I'm happy to say that we have reintroduced legislation to protect Canadians from conversion therapy. This is the same bill as former Bill C-8, which we originally introduced in March. La thérapie de conversion est une pratique dévastatrice qui est extrêmement nuisible pour ceux qui la subissent. Les mineurs en particulier en subissent les effets néfastes et ceux-ci continuent souvent à l'âge adulte. Conversion therapy has been discredited and denounced by professional and health associations in Canada and indeed around the world. It has no basis in science or in healthcare practices. Too many Canadians have undergone conversion therapy and have had to live with its harmful effects. That's why our government today is stepping up to do our part to make sure that no one else has to face this devastating practice. Bill C-6 proposes to create 5 new criminal code offenses targeting conversion therapy. These proposed offenses would prohibit causing a minor to undergo conversion therapy, removing a minor from Canada to undergo conversion therapy abroad, causing any person to undergo conversion therapy against their will, profiting from providing conversion therapy, and advertising the provision of conversion therapy. Les infractions proposées ne criminaliseraient pas les pratiques, traitements ou services qui visent à explorer l'identité de quelqu'un. Elle ne rendrait pas illégal le fait de fournir un soutien aux personnes qui en ont besoin ou qui se questionnent leur orientation sexuelle ou leur identité de genre. The bill does not put an end to conversations youth and individuals may have with supportive adults and professionals in their lives in assisting them in exploring their identity. These discussions are often critical to personal development. Nor would the proposed offenses criminalize conversations where personal points of view on sexual orientation or gender identity are expressed. What this bill targets, what we are targeting, are those who actively work to and provide services designed to change someone's gender identity to cisgender or sexual orientation to heterosexual. These dangerous practices must come to an end. Nous continuerons de travailler en étroite collaboration avec les provinces, les territoires, les municipalités et les collectivités touchées, ainsi que les autres parties dans la Chambre, afin que nous puissions apprendre les uns des autres et unir nos efforts pour éliminer cette pratique nuisible dans l'ensemble de nos administrations. Canada is a country where everyone, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation, can live equally and in freedom. That's the legacy we want to leave for all of our children and grandchildren. I hope that all parliamentarians will support this important piece of legislation. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Maintenant, on va prendre vos questions.
So we'll now go to question period, starting with question on the phone. A quick reminder to reporters, 1 question, 1 follow-up. Nous allons maintenant passer aux questions, en commençant par les questions au téléphone. Un petit rappel que c'est une question suivie par journaliste. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. The first question, la première question, is from Louis Blouin. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, M. Lametti. Les conservateurs disent que votre projet de loi n'est pas assez précis, qu'il y a des zones grises qui pourraient entraîner une criminalisation de discussion entre des parents, un leader religieux et un enfant. Quelle garantie pouvez-vous leur donner qu'il y a une distinction claire qui est faite dans votre projet de loi?
D'abord, nous croyons que c'est assez clair dans le projet de loi. Les conversations entre un adulte et un enfant qui visent à explorer l'identité de l'enfant, qui donne un encadrement qu'on donne à nos enfants tout le temps, ne sont pas visées par la loi. On pense que c'est assez clair. Ce qu'on vise sont les pratiques qui essaient de changer l'orientation sexuelle d'un enfant pour être normal. Et ce sont les pratiques visées par la loi. Évidemment, on va travailler avec les autres parties dans la Chambre. On va travailler à travers le processus de comité pour améliorer la législation. S'il y a des choses qu'on pourrait mieux dire, mieux faire, on va le faire. On va travailler ensemble en bonne foi avec n'importe qui.
De la part des conservateurs, est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y a un peu de manœuvre politique là-dedans? Comment vous voyez ça? Par ailleurs, à quelle vitesse pensez-vous être capable de faire adopter ce projet de loi-là? Quand espérez-vous peut-être qu'il reçoive la sanction royale? C'est quoi votre cible, disons?
Écoutez, je crois qu'on a vu aujourd'hui un appui assez important dans la Chambre des communes. Donc espérons qu'on pourrait avoir un appui même unanime dans la Chambre et puis devant le Sénat. Donc nous sommes confiants qu'on va procéder assez vite avec l'adoption de la loi. Ceci dit, on doit je crois que c'est à M. O'Toole de s'assurer que les membres de son caucus seront en mesure d'appuyer la loi. We're pretty confident, given the degree of support that you saw in the House today, that we can get this bill through reasonably quickly. And so both in the House of Commons and in the Senate. So hopefully that will happen. We'll work in good faith, as I said in an answer to a previous question in French, we'll work in good faith at the committee stage to make sure that we get it right. We do think we have it right. We're not criminalizing ordinary conversations that adults have or a pastor, someone might have in the legitimate exploration of identity with someone. What we are targeting is the practice of converting someone to a heteronormative standard, which is completely and utterly wrong. That being said, it's really up to if Mr. O'Toole is sincere, and I think he is, it will be up to him to bring his caucus in line.
Opératrice, prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Stéphanie Levette, de Canadian Press. La prochaine question de Stéphanie Levette, la presse canadienne. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Good morning. My question is for Minister Lametti, and I think it was either you or Minister Chagger who touched on it off the top, but there's a lot of bills on your agenda right now, Minister, including medical assistance in dying, including pressure from a lot of folks to do something on mandatory minimums, bills that have really widespread application. Why is this one of the first ones out of the hopper?
Look, that's probably a question. I'm saying this with a smile. That's probably a question best asked to the House Leader. There are short legislative runways in a variety of cases with this hybrid parliament that we're working under. We're trying to get all of these pieces of legislation through as quickly as possible. So we introduced the judicial training bill today. I'm introducing with Minister Chagger the conversion therapy bill. I can assure you that the MAID legislation is coming very soon. And so people need not be concerned that won't be in front of the House of Commons very soon. And then after that, we will see.
Okay, thanks. And then just as a follow-up, you keep referring to moving it very swiftly through the House of Commons. Should that be understood then that you'll limit debate or seek to curb how many hours of study it gets at committee and that sort of thing?
No, I was actually referring to what I felt was the degree of support in the House today. And I think as we saw, we got a number of different supportive statements, including from the Leader of the Opposition, who seemed to have supported the principle behind the bill, which we feel is very well framed within the bill. So we think we can build on that support.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question, la prochaine question est de Hélène Bossetti, Le Devoir. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Lametti. Autant Monsieur Trudeau que votre collègue aux Affaires autochtones ont indiqué que dans l'affaire de Joyce et Chachan, il y avait peut-être lieu de croire qu'il y avait de la criminalité qui avait été impliquée. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous en dire plus? À quoi faites-vous référence du côté de votre gouvernement? Merci.
Évidemment, je me base sur les déclarations de mes collègues, de ministre Miller ainsi que du Premier ministre, qui avaient, selon eux, l'évidence du racisme systémique dans les actions posées pour n'importe quelle question ou potentiel d'avoir des accusations criminelles. Ça, c'est une décision qui est prise indépendamment par les services de poursuite pénale. Et donc, en tant que procureur général, je ne vais pas me prononcer là-dessus.
D'accord, je m'en doutais bien, mais j'ai essayé. Mais juste pour revenir à votre projet de loi aujourd'hui, vous ciblez M. O'Toole en disant j'espère qu'il va s'assurer qu'il a son caucus de son côté. Pourquoi craignez-vous qu'il pourrait y avoir des problèmes du côté conservateur?
Ben, d'abord, j'étais très, très content des mots de M. O'Toole aujourd'hui. Il a appuyé clairement un principe. Le projet de loi qui va bannir la pratique. Donc, j'étais très content. Ceci dit, il y a certains membres de son caucus qui se sont prononcés contre, même récemment, des telles pratiques, une telle position. Donc, c'est quelque chose qu'il doit régler au sein de son caucus, mais comme je viens de dire, j'étais très, très content et je demeure très optimiste que c'est un projet de loi qui va trouver l'appui à travers la Chambre des communs. Thank you. Excuse me. As I had said, very pleased to begin with to see the support that, in principle, that the leader of the opposition gave to this bill. That being said, there are members of his caucus who have not taken these sorts of positions publicly, including recently, and so it will really be up to him to bring his caucus in line. But I'm optimistic given the level of support that we saw in the House.
We're now taking questions in the room before going back for one last question on the phone.
Hi, Rachel Haynes here from CTV National News. So while you are taking this step to crack down on conversion therapy, it has still been 100 days since the Prime Minister said that the blood ban policy would be changing. How come that hasn't been enacted yet? And what kind of impact is that having on COVID-19 research right now?
Well, I think that's probably a question that's better directed at the Minister of Health, who would be able to give you more detail. All I can do really, and Minister Chagger may want to join in, is assure you that we're still committed to that blood ban.
Minister, would you like to respond to that as the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion?
So I'll echo comments from Minister Lametti in regards to our support to see the blood ban lifted. So there's follow-ups going on. We have invested in research and we're working closely with Canada Blood Services as well as HEMA Quebec to ensure that our decisions are based on evidence, not ideology. There has been some delays within research because of COVID-19, but we remain committed, and that's where what we're doing is making sure that as we return to Parliament is that we've shared our vision with the speech from the throne with Canadians so that we can continue to respond to the realities of COVID-19, but also continue to advance our commitments that we made to Canadians, such as seeing the blood ban lifted.
Thank you. And also you started off this press conference by saying that this bill is going to protect Canadians, even though it's not going to cover conversations that happen at home or at schools or with mental health professionals. So, I mean, how widespread is conversion therapy outside of these settings that you are confident that Canadians will be protected? Are you not leaving a lot of people unprotected because they may feel pressure in those types of settings that are not covered as part of this legislation?
Well, what we're banning is the practice itself. So the conversation might very well happen in a legitimate way, in the sense that a young person is exploring identity, asking questions to parents, asking questions to friends, asking perhaps questions to a religious mentor or a professional. Those conversations are legitimate. What is not legitimate is when someone says, you need to go through this therapy in order to become a heterosexual or cisgendered person. So we're banning the practice, and to the extent that those conversations cease being exploratory and start being a pressure, a means of applying pressure, a means of participating in that illegal practice, then they get touched by the law.
A parent or somebody says, oh, this was just a conversation, I wasn't trying to do anything, but then the youth actually feels, no, they were trying to convert me.
Well, those kinds of situations are always what the law has to determine on the facts, right? So what a legal process has to determine on the facts. What we're trying to do is create an architecture where the young person is comfortable saying, no, you can't do this. We've had the conversation. Stop. Done. This is the way I am. I'm going to pursue other ways of find other sources of help or pursue other ways of living or thinking, etc. So what we're trying to do is really empower people, particularly young people, to say, this is who I am. These are the conversations I want to have to help me understand who I am. You're not doing that now. You're pressuring me, and I have the force of law behind me if you try to go any further. Yeah.
The only thing I'll add to that is, and you're absolutely correct that there are young people feeling a lot of pressure, and this legislation actually hopefully provides some relief from that pressure because it turns the tables on the conversation. Because the person who is imposing that pressure now will have, well, the law will be able to take care of that issue. I also want to say that when it comes to this legislation, it's also supported with numerous investments that our government has made in capacity building for organizations, LGBTQ2 organizations, to be able to support members within the communities. So this is another piece of the conversation. This legislation was informed by the limited Canadian research that we have. It was informed by organizations. It was informed by survivors, and that's why we're really grateful to them. And that's why the conversations where Minister Lametti and I and our team started to the legislation that was introduced in March and reintroduced today, we believe is very good legislation. And based on the conversations we've had with advocates and allies and people who have been waiting for legislation to come forward, I believe would also say that it's very good legislation. We want to see it travel through the House of Commons, including at committee. And to an earlier question, the assurance I would give to anyone with concerns is work with your members of parliament, work with our government to ensure that your concerns are heard, because we're committed to getting it right.
Operator, do we have one last question on the phone?
Thank you. Merci. Yes, we do have a last question from Fioli Lee, City News, Rogers Communication. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm just asking why there's this exemption for it to be discussed in mental health situations, because as far as I'm aware, conversion therapy is like the American Psychiatric Association opposes it because it presupposes homosexuality is a mental disorder, and it's also classed as a form of torture by the International Rehabilitation Council for torture victims. Like, why is mental health involved in this picture?
Thank you for that question. And indeed, the legislation will dovetail nicely with initiatives that have already been taken by provinces and municipalities in their own areas of jurisdiction, including setting up codes for the medical practice. Mental health is obviously critical throughout this bill. What we're doing and everything, and I think our government would agree with every single thing that you said, the various statements that you have taken from the American Medical Association describing this as torture, etc. We believe all of that. All we are doing is trying. Well, let me tell you what we are. What we are definitely doing is criminalizing the practice of conversion therapy whenever it's done on a minor, and criminalizing the practice when it's done on an adult against their will. So the way to understand the relatively small exemption is we're just trying to protect a conversational space for people who are legitimately exploring identity, not being forced, but are exploring identity with people they trust, parent, mentor, etc. So when it becomes compulsive, then it becomes illegal. But the conversation itself is something that many people who are exploring their own identity absolutely need to have, and that's good for their mental health. It becomes destructive when it becomes compelled, and that's what we're targeting in the legislation.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I believe I might have misquoted myself when I was asking one of the questions. It was American Psychiatric Association opposes it on the presupposition that homosexuality is a mental disorder. Apologize for that. Sorry, won't take up much more of your time, but does this not also sort of assume that conversion therapy is something that an adult can consent to?
I think assume is too strong. The legislation does leave open the possibility that an adult can consent to this. We felt that there are, for whatever reason, it might be religious reasons or other, that an adult capable of making the decision and not under pressure, not being forced to do it, not being fraudulently led into doing it. All of those other practices are criminalized. But for the situation where the adult is making a decision that is not in any way being compelled or is fraudulently deceived into doing that, we have preserved that space. And not made that activity illegal. We have made everything around it illegal, though, and that's important to recognize. So even for adults, and even for consulting adults, people who advertise conversion therapy services would now be guilty of a criminal offense, as well as people who benefit materially, i.e. charge money for the provision of conversion therapy services. So the actual space for the exemption that we felt we needed to have in order also to protect simply the charter rights of individuals is actually quite small.
This concludes the press conference. Ici met fin à la conférence de presse.
Thank you.